Before we begin, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting English stories and simple English learning content. Today, we are going to discover the extraordinary life of Cleopatra, one of the most famous and mysterious queens in human history. She was intelligent, ambitious, courageous, and politically skilled. Her life was filled with power struggles, dangerous enemies, great love, war, loss, and mystery. Although she lived more than 2,000 years ago, people still talk about her today. Cleopatra was born in 69 BCE in Alexandria, one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. At that time, Alexandria was famous for education, science, literature, trade, and culture. It was also home to the legendary Library of Alexandria, which attracted scholars from many different regions. Cleopatra was the last powerful ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Although she ruled Egypt, her family was originally Macedonian Greek. The dynasty had been founded by Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals. After Alexander's death, Ptolemy took control of Egypt, and his family continued ruling the country for nearly 300 years. Unlike many rulers in her family, Cleopatra made a serious effort to understand the Egyptian people. She learned to speak the Egyptian language, respected local traditions, and presented herself as an Egyptian ruler. Historical accounts suggest that she could speak several languages. This ability helped her communicate with foreign leaders, diplomats, traders, and different groups within her kingdom. Cleopatra received an excellent education. She studied philosophy, mathematics, medicine, literature, politics, public speaking, and diplomacy. Many people remember her mainly for her beauty, but ancient writers often focused more on her intelligence, personality, voice, confidence, and ability to persuade others. Her childhood was not peaceful. Her father, Ptolemy XII, faced political opposition and financial problems. At one point, he was forced to leave Egypt. He later returned to power with Roman support, but this support came at a high cost. Egypt became increasingly dependent on Rome, which was rapidly becoming the strongest power in the Mediterranean world. When Cleopatra's father died in 51 BCE, she became queen at around 18 years old. According to royal tradition, she was expected to rule with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. He was only about 10 years old. Cleopatra was also expected to marry him because members of the Ptolemaic royal family often married their siblings to keep power within the dynasty. However, Cleopatra did not want to remain a powerless figure beside her younger brother. She wanted to govern Egypt herself. She began making decisions independently and placed her own image and name on official documents. This created tension between her and the advisors who controlled her brother. The conflict became more serious, and Cleopatra was eventually forced to leave Alexandria. She escaped from Egypt and began gathering supporters and soldiers. She was determined to recover her throne, but she needed a powerful ally. At the same time, Rome was experiencing a civil war. Julius Caesar, one of Rome's greatest generals, was fighting against his rival Pompey. After being defeated, Pompey fled to Egypt, hoping to receive protection. Instead, the advisors of Ptolemy XIII ordered Pompey's death, believing this would please Caesar. When Caesar arrived in Egypt, he was not pleased by Pompey's murder. He became involved in the conflict between Cleopatra and her brother. Cleopatra understood that meeting Caesar could change her future, but entering the palace was extremely dangerous because her brother's forces controlled the area. According to a famous story, Cleopatra was secretly carried into Caesar's residence while hidden inside a rolled carpet or a large cloth bag. When it was opened, Cleopatra appeared before him. Whether every detail of this story is true or not, it became one of the most famous moments associated with her life. Cleopatra impressed Caesar with her courage, intelligence, confidence, and political skill. She explained her claim to the throne and persuaded him to support her. Caesar attempted to settle the conflict, but the disagreement soon turned into war. During the fighting in Alexandria, Caesar and Cleopatra's forces battled against the supporters of Ptolemy XIII. The young king eventually died while trying to escape, possibly by drowning in the Nile. Cleopatra regained her position as queen. She was then officially connected to another younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, but Cleopatra held the real power. She had survived exile, returned to Egypt, defeated her enemies, and established herself as the country's true ruler. Cleopatra and Julius Caesar developed both a political and personal relationship. In 47 BCE, Cleopatra gave birth to a son named Ptolemy XV Caesar. He became widely known as Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. Cleopatra claimed that Julius Caesar was his father, although Caesar never officially named him as his legal Roman heir. For Cleopatra, Caesar's support was extremely valuable. Rome was powerful enough to protect Egypt, and her relationship with him strengthened her position. For Caesar, Egypt was strategically important because it was wealthy and supplied large amounts of grain. Cleopatra later traveled to Rome with Caesarion. She stayed at one of Caesar's properties and attracted great attention. Many Romans were uncomfortable with her presence. They feared that Caesar was becoming too powerful and worried about his relationship with a foreign queen. Caesar publicly honored Cleopatra, and a statue of her was reportedly placed in a temple associated with the goddess Venus. Cleopatra's presence in Rome influenced fashion, culture, and public discussion. However, her security depended heavily on Caesar. On March 15 in 44 BCE, Julius Caesar was assassinated by a group of Roman senators. They believed that he had gained too much power and might try to become a king. His death changed Cleopatra's situation immediately. Without Caesar's protection, Rome was no longer safe for her. Cleopatra returned to Egypt with her son. Soon afterward, her younger brother and co-ruler, Ptolemy XIV, died. Cleopatra then made Caesarion her co-ruler. Cleopatra wanted Caesarion to be recognized as Caesar's true son and heir, but Rome followed a different path. In Caesar's will, his adopted son Octavian was named as his main heir. Octavian was young, intelligent, patient, and extremely ambitious. After Caesar's death, Rome was divided by another civil war. Caesar's supporters fought against his assassins. Among his strongest supporters was Mark Antony, an experienced Roman general and politician. After defeating Caesar's assassins, Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus divided control of the Roman territories. Antony became responsible for the eastern regions, where Egypt was located. Cleopatra understood that she would need a new alliance to protect her kingdom. In 41 BCE, Antony called Cleopatra to meet him in Tarsus, in present-day Turkey. Cleopatra did not arrive quietly. She traveled in a magnificent ship decorated with luxurious fabrics, golden details, music, perfume, and attendants. She presented herself like the goddess Aphrodite, while Antony was associated with the god Dionysus. Her arrival was carefully planned. Cleopatra wanted to demonstrate Egypt's wealth, her own royal authority, and her importance as an ally. Antony was impressed by her intelligence, confidence, personality, and political influence. Their meeting created a powerful alliance, and they later became lovers. Antony spent time with Cleopatra in Alexandria, where they enjoyed an extravagant royal lifestyle. However, their relationship was not based only on romance. Both of them had political goals. Antony needed Egypt's money, ships, grain, and military support for his campaigns. Cleopatra needed Antony's protection to secure her throne, defend Egypt, and expand her influence. Cleopatra and Antony had 3 children together. First, they had twins named Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. Later, they had another son named Ptolemy Philadelphus. Their relationship became increasingly controversial in Rome. Antony was still connected to Roman politics and had married Octavian's sister, Octavia, as part of a political agreement. However, he later returned to Cleopatra and spent more time in the eastern territories. Antony held an important ceremony known as the Donations of Alexandria. During this event, he granted territories and royal titles to Cleopatra and their children. Caesarion was publicly presented as the son of Julius Caesar. This greatly angered Octavian. Caesarion's claim threatened Octavian's position as Caesar's heir. Octavian began using Antony's relationship with Cleopatra as political propaganda. He told the Roman people that Antony had abandoned Roman values and had fallen under the control of a foreign queen. Cleopatra was described by her enemies as dangerous, manipulative, and hungry for power. Much of the negative image surrounding her came from Roman propaganda created by Octavian's supporters. The conflict eventually became a war. Officially, Rome declared war against Cleopatra rather than Antony, allowing Octavian to present the struggle as a war against a foreign threat. In 31 BCE, the forces of Octavian faced the combined fleet of Antony and Cleopatra near Actium, on the western coast of Greece. The Battle of Actium became one of the most important naval battles in ancient history. During the fighting, Cleopatra's ships left the main battle area. Antony followed her. Historians still debate exactly why they withdrew. It may have been part of a planned escape, a response to changing battle conditions, or a decision made after they realized that victory was no longer possible. Whatever the reason, Octavian's forces won the battle. Antony and Cleopatra returned to Egypt, but their position was becoming hopeless. Allies began abandoning them, their military strength weakened, and Octavian prepared to invade Egypt. In 30 BCE, Octavian entered Alexandria. Antony received false information that Cleopatra had died. Believing that the woman he loved was gone and that his cause was lost, Antony attempted to take his own life by falling on his sword. He did not die immediately. According to ancient accounts, he was taken to the place where Cleopatra had hidden herself. Antony died in her presence. Cleopatra had now lost her most important ally, her partner, and the father of 3 of her children. Octavian soon captured Cleopatra. He wanted to take her to Rome and display her in his victory parade. For a proud queen who had ruled Egypt for more than 20 years, being publicly shown as a defeated prisoner would have been an unbearable humiliation. Cleopatra attempted to negotiate with Octavian. She wanted to protect her children and preserve some form of royal power. She especially hoped to save Caesar, whom she viewed as the rightful heir of Julius Caesar. However, Octavian wanted complete control of Egypt. He could not allow Caesar to remain alive as a possible rival. Cleopatra gradually understood that she would lose her kingdom, her freedom, and possibly her children. In August of 30 BCE, Cleopatra died at the age of 39. The exact cause of her death remains uncertain. The most famous story says that she allowed a poisonous snake, often described as an asp, to bite her. Some historians believe she may have used a prepared poison instead. Others have questioned whether she was secretly killed, although there is no final proof. She was found with 2 of her attendants. Ancient stories describe her dressed in royal clothing, determined to die as a queen rather than live as a prisoner. Octavian allowed Cleopatra to be buried near Antony, according to her wishes. However, the exact location of their tomb has never been confirmed. Archaeologists continue searching for it, and the lost tomb remains one of history's greatest mysteries. After Cleopatra's death, Caesar attempted to escape. He was captured and executed under Octavian's orders. Octavian reportedly received advice that having more than one Caesar was not a good idea. Cleopatra's children with Antony were taken to Rome. They were placed under the care of Octavia, Antony's Roman wife and Octavian's sister. The later lives of the 2 boys are unclear, but Cleopatra Selene survived and eventually married King Juba II of Mauritania. She became an influential queen and continued elements of her mother's cultural legacy. With Cleopatra's death, Egypt lost its independence and became a Roman province. The ancient Ptolemaic dynasty came to an end, and Octavian gained control of Egypt's enormous wealth and grain supply. A few years later, Octavian became Augustus, the first Roman emperor. The victory over Antony and Cleopatra helped him establish the Roman Empire and changed the course of world history. For centuries, Cleopatra has often been described as the most beautiful woman of the ancient world. However, there is no reliable evidence that her appearance alone was the source of her influence. Images on ancient coins show strong and distinctive facial features rather than the perfect beauty often shown in modern movies. Ancient writers suggested that her conversation, voice, intelligence, confidence, and presence were extremely attractive. She understood human behavior and knew how to communicate with powerful people. Her greatest strength may not have been physical beauty but her ability to make others listen to her. Another common misunderstanding is that Cleopatra was ethnically Egyptian. Her dynasty was Macedonian Greek, but she ruled Egypt, followed Egyptian royal traditions, and learned the Egyptian language. This distinguished her from many members of her family. Cleopatra was much more than the romantic partner of Caesar and Antony. She was a monarch who ruled for more than 20 years during one of the most dangerous periods in Egyptian history. She managed the economy, organized military forces, communicated with foreign powers, and worked to preserve Egypt's independence. Some later traditions claim that she wrote or contributed to works involving medicine, cosmetics, and science. However, it is difficult to know which writings were truly hers because many ancient works have been lost or attributed to famous people long after their deaths. Her story also teaches us how history can be shaped by the winners. Much of the information about Cleopatra came from Roman writers who lived under Octavian or later Roman rulers. These writers often described her from the viewpoint of her enemies. Octavian needed the Roman public to see Cleopatra as a dangerous foreign queen. By blaming her for Antony's actions, he could present his war as a defense of Rome instead of another Roman civil war. Over time, Cleopatra became a mixture of history, legend, propaganda, romance, and imagination. Writers, painters, filmmakers, musicians, and actors created many different versions of her. William Shakespeare presented her in his famous play Antony and Cleopatra. Many novels, paintings, operas, television programs, and films have also told her story. One of the most famous films was Cleopatra, released in 1963 and starring Elizabeth Taylor. Even today, Cleopatra influences fashion, jewelry, makeup, art, and popular culture. Her name immediately creates images of ancient Egypt, royal power, mystery, luxury, and tragedy. But beyond the legends, Cleopatra's life gives us several valuable lessons. The first lesson is that knowledge creates power. Cleopatra studied languages, politics, philosophy, science, and communication. Her education allowed her to speak directly with different people and make difficult political decisions. Her story reminds us that learning can prepare us for challenges that strength alone cannot solve. The second lesson is the importance of confidence. Cleopatra lost her throne when she was young, but she did not accept defeat. She gathered supporters, returned to Egypt, and faced some of the most powerful men in the ancient world. Confidence did not guarantee victory, but it gave her the courage to continue. The third lesson is adaptability. Cleopatra lived during a period when Rome was becoming almost impossible to resist. She used diplomacy, personal alliances, economic support, and military power to protect Egypt for as long as she could. She changed her plans when circumstances changed. The fourth lesson is that leadership requires strategy. Cleopatra understood the importance of presentation, timing, negotiation, and alliances. Her dramatic meeting with Caesar and her magnificent arrival before Antony were not simply romantic events. They were carefully planned political actions. The fifth lesson is that determination can help us survive difficult moments. Cleopatra faced exile, civil war, betrayal, foreign invasion, and the loss of people close to her. Although her story ended tragically, she continued fighting for her kingdom for many years. Her life also reminds us that powerful people can still make serious mistakes. Her alliance with Antony helped her for a time, but it also connected Egypt's future to his conflict with Octavian. Their defeat at Actium destroyed their final chance of resisting Rome. Cleopatra was neither a perfect hero nor the evil queen described by her enemies. She was a complex human being who lived in an extremely dangerous political world. She could be intelligent, brave, ambitious, strategic, and ruthless. Like many rulers, she made choices to protect her power, her family, and her kingdom. Her dream of preserving an independent Egypt ultimately failed, but her name was never forgotten. Octavian defeated her armies, captured her capital, and took control of her country, yet he could not erase her from history. More than 2,000 years after her death, people are still searching for her tomb, studying her decisions, debating her appearance, and retelling her story. Very few rulers from the ancient world remain so widely recognized. Cleopatra's legacy is not based only on beauty, romance, or tragedy. It is also a legacy of education, communication, leadership, political intelligence, courage, and resistance. She became queen while she was still a teenager. She lost her throne and recovered it. She negotiated with Julius Caesar. She built an alliance with Mark Antony. She ruled Egypt during the rise of Rome. She commanded wealth, ships, soldiers, and political influence. She stood at the center of events that transformed the ancient Mediterranean world. In the end, Cleopatra could not stop Rome from taking Egypt. However, her struggle delayed the loss of Egyptian independence and made her one of history's most unforgettable rulers. Her story shows us that physical beauty may attract attention, but intelligence, courage, confidence, and character create a lasting legacy. Wealth can disappear, kingdoms can fall, and political power can end, but meaningful actions can continue inspiring people for generations. Cleopatra was more than a queen. She was a scholar, a diplomat, a strategist, a mother, a survivor, and a symbol of ambition. Her life was filled with victories and defeats, love and loss, hope and tragedy. That is why Cleopatra's story continues to fascinate the world. She lived boldly, fought for her kingdom, and refused to be remembered only as a defeated prisoner. Although Egypt became part of the Roman Empire, Cleopatra became a legend. Thank you for listening to this story. Please like the video, share it with anyone who enjoys history and English learning stories, and subscribe to our channel. Turn on the notification bell so you do not miss our next story. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep improving your English every day.